Hi everyone, Becky here. Guess what we're doing? We're doing the textbook, right? 顶石中文 Capstone Chinese. This is the HSK 7 through 9 textbook. All right, so we're on page 30 something. We're on page 37. Oh, okay. 37. That's all right. All right. We're talking about environmental issues and in particular the 2009 conference in Copenhagen. And we're doing an interview with Ding Zhongli, who was not happy whatsoever about, about how China got treated in that conference. All right. 碳排放的蛋糕怎么切? Okay, so 蛋糕 here is a metaphor referring to there's a certain amount of carbon the world can emit, and that needs to be distributed among various countries and the world populace. However, yeah, as we saw, 2009 conference in Copenhagen, yeah, kind of didn't get a per capita slice of that pie, or at least that was the proposal. Anyway, hence, Ding Zhongli was not very happy. Yeah, okay. 2009年12月7日，举世瞩目的联合国气候变化峰会在丹麦首都Copenhagen. I don't know how to say it in English. Copenhagen 召开，来自192个国家和地区的代表参与了这次大会。国际社会希望在本次大会上商定下一步温室气体减排的方案。就2012到2020年全球应对气候变化问题达成一项新协议。然而，在历时近2周的会议中，参与人数已经远远超过了官方注册的15000人。会场内外硝烟四起，一片喧嚣，直到接近卫生代表们仍然没能达成共识。All right. So lots of people attending this conference. It's a very important conference going to determine the future of the planet. Let's see how we go. So we've got an interview. This is actually an interview on YouTube you can watch. There is a journalist, I forget her name. It was Chai something, I forget. And Ding Zhongli. Ding Zhongli is I believe is a professor of geology, and wrote an article criticizing the IPCC report from the time. 这次哥本哈根给人的感觉一直在尖锐激烈的争吵，到底在吵什么？丁仲礼，其实吵的问题很简单，就是今后不同的国家还能排放多少二氧化碳。记住，这个排放多少，实质又是什么？丁仲礼。简单一句话，就是说这个问题是和能源问题联系在一起的，和发展问题是休戚相连的，休戚相关的。This is a new one for me. 所以说争论半天就是我还能排放多少。我还能使用多少能源？您的意思就是 这个排放就意味着未来的发展权。Yeah, I didn't get that out fluently, did I? Let's try again. 你的意思就是这个排放就意味着未来的发展权，加上一个问号。有时候 you need to kind of adjust your tone, not in the sense of 一二三四, not in that sense. In the overall tone of and cadence of the speech, to turn a statement into a sentence, much like you do in English, but you also have to maintain the tones as well. So it's really quite challenging to do in Chinese. 这个是肯定的. Yeah, so the amount of carbon emissions your country is allowed to have, determines its development potential in the future. Yeah, so this journalist, it's actually quite an interesting interview because the journalist does actually push back on him. He's an expert, right? Ding Zhongli. But he's an expert in geology rather than government policy and so on. So yeah, 这个排放权，对于普通国民又意味着什么？意味着生活的改善，意味着国家的发展。你的福利能不能进一步的增加，也意味着你有没有工作。Yeah, so like for the future, we need to reduce carbon emissions, but that of course, carbon emissions is tied to economic development, and economic development pertains to your money in your wallet at the end of the day. So getting a balance here is rather important, but yeah, we'll see how Ding Zhongli interprets it. 您理解的公平是什么？ Yeah, I don't know about this question. 您理解的公平是什么？ This question seems a little awkward to me, but all right, let's move on. 人与人之间应该有个大致相等的排放空间。不过，这次的方案并没有对发展中国家提出要求，也没有要求你减多少，不是吗？ Yeah, so this is the journalist pushing back. So Ding Zhongli's contention is that this IPCC policy or agreement, protocol, whatever you want to call it, was unfair. Unfair to China and unfair to developing countries. At the time, China was a developing country. I believe China is still classed as a developing country, but it's in a much better position now than like 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, so the journalist is pushing back saying, well, the IPCC report does not actually put restrictions on China and other such countries, right? Yeah. 它确实是没有对发展中国家减排设定绝对量。Yeah, 绝对量 is an absolute value, not in the sense of you take a negative number and turn it into a positive, that kind of thing. Not in that sense. 绝对量. I believe it is the same word though, the absolute value. Oh no, absolute value is 绝对值. So in mathematics, 绝对值 is the absolute value of a number. So if it's a negative number, you make it positive, and if it's a positive number, it stays positive, right? And then it extends to like complex numbers and so on, where it gets a little bit more complicated, and I don't want to get into that. Anyway, yeah, 绝对量 is an absolute quantity. So that it's saying this policy does not stipulate China has to have this amount of emissions or less, right? But yeah, if only the world was so simple. 但是它对发达国家设定了减排标准。中期2020年有25%到40%的减排，到2050年 要有80%到95%的减排，但是它有一个总量，它有一个总量，就是全世界二氧化碳的排放总量，统统放在8000亿吨这个大盘子里。So yeah, so so these developed countries, um, the developed countries are in a position where they're kind of sort of claiming a lot of this total that is reasonable to emit. I mean, you can emit more, but it will kind of destroy our children's futures, you know. And generally, we shouldn't do that. But then again, a lot of people don't seem to care that much. So he's arguing, yeah, that a lot of the developed countries are kind of greedily saying, oh, I'm allowed to do this, and I'm going to do this. And that will consume a large amount of this. So despite the policy not applying to undeveloped countries, or it still says that the vast bulk or a disproportionate bulk of the amount of carbon that can be emitted is given to already developed countries, right? Hence, if China develops in the future and becomes a developed country, yeah, it will somehow be still restricted by the former conditions, right? I mean, China cannot catch up without to like USA standards and whatnot without there being a massive change in the amount of carbon emitted. All right. 那么等于这个蛋糕的数量是确定下来了。Okay, so we have a certain amount of cake. 也就是说，今后发达国家的人均排放权是发展中国家的2.3倍。尽管减80%，一步一步往下减，但是发达国家基数大，是发展中国家的4.8倍。Yeah, so the developed countries are kind of claiming an unfair amount of this cake, according to 丁仲礼。如果国际上对今后的排放进行严格的限定的话，那么二氧化碳的排放权就会变成一种非常稀缺的不可多得的商品。Right. So it's like we've got this cake, it becomes scarce, right? There's more demand, there's limited supply. And so it becomes a commodity. 就是你想要排有可能，想要排有可能，你不够排，你就得买，你不够排，你就得买。前提是你承认二氧化碳排放配额是一种稀缺商品。真金白银，真金白银。So she used this as a kind of a metaphor, right? So these rights to emit carbon, you purchase, right? You trade with other countries. That country's not using as much. And so it can sell its rights and so on. So it's valuable as gold, etc., and silver. 丁仲礼。那么这个8000亿吨分配的过程当中，多分一点，少分一点，是多大的利益？ Yeah, it very much directs the development of your country. If it's not distributed per capita, right? If it was, then maybe every country would just try to produce as many babies as possible or something like this. Everyone immigrate to our country, and then we'll get more. But at the same time, you know, it's kind of disproportionate at times. 记者他现在提出的一个概念，就是说我不管你是人均还是说贫富，现在只以碳排放大国来算。Yeah, so it's not talking about per capita and whether or not you're rich or poor. So the polar IPCC policy is only applicable to developed countries. 根据 G 八的方案 so this is a second policy, the G 八27个发达国家取走的是多少蛋糕？取走的是44%。发达国家多少人口？11亿人口。余下的55亿人分56%的蛋糕。那么你说公平不公平？ Yeah, so this is what he was like in the interview. He was quite, I don't know, quite passionate about this. So he was asking questions like this. Lots of rhetorical questions. All right. So this is what developed countries are claiming for themselves. It's like, we're taking this and the rest of the world can have this. Unfortunately, it's a disproportionate amount with respect to per capita, right? OK, 这个方案本身就没有接人口计算 ，Yeah, so it's not based on population. 那你算算账，假如告诉你中国从2020年以后，每年花1万亿人民币去购买二氧化碳排放权，你会怎么想？是不是有失公允？ Yeah, so he's talking about a hypothetical future, which for us is actually the past, but all right, a hypothetical future in which China will have to purchase carbon emission rights, carbon dioxide emission rights. And but at the same time, still produce less carbon than developed countries. This per capita, right? OK. 换句话说，我对公平的理解，我把排放权视为发展权，视为基本人权，所以人与人之间应该有个大致相等的排放空间。Yeah, so he's arguing that like everyone in the world should basically have the same carbon emission rights, right? Or at least in the same ballpark. 维护发展中国家的利益，保障发展中国家的发展权利，落实联合国千年发展计划。Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what this refers to. It's some United Nations plan for like a 1,000-year development plan. I don't know what this refers to. 这难过不是人类的利益吗？ Yeah, he's got a point. Like, we should benefit everyone in the world as a species rather than just benefit a bunch of rich countries. 假如像您所说的，现在这个方案发达国家又不接受的话，如果他就这么拖下去，这几年下去，会不会温室效应导致的全球变暖的状况更糟糕吗？更糟糕了。I'm going to say it again. 也这几年下去，会不会温室效应导致的全球变暖的状况更糟糕了？ Yeah, so she's arguing, okay, sure, it's kind of unfair, but if we put forth a proposal that is fair, then developed countries will not accept it and just do whatever they want. Yeah. So welcome to politics. 听众里，我很乐观， 我研究几亿年以来的环境气候演化，这不是人类成就地球的问题，是人类成就自己的问题。跟成就地球是没有关系的。地球用不着你成就，地球呃，地球比现在再高10几度的时候有的是。Yeah, so this is a hypothetical, right? He's saying even in the most extreme circumstance, let's say we let the climate go to, I don't know, go to trash, go to I need a non-swear word to insert there. Like it's a total schmozzle. The climate becomes a total schmozzle for human life. For human life. Guess what? 地球也有的是，有的是. I think this is just another way of saying 仍然存在. The world is still here. It doesn't care. It doesn't care if we mess up the climate. Yeah, humans certainly are going to care, but yeah, the Earth is like, yeah, I'm just doing my thing. I can be hot. I was like a whole volcano to begin with, right? 地球二氧化碳的浓度比现在高10倍的时候，也有的是。地球不是，地球不都是这么演化过来的，都好好的。Yeah, so yeah, yet another rhetorical question, right? So here it's like it came from this. It used to be very very hot, right? The Earth used to be very very hot, and then it cooled down, and so on. This is from a geological point of view. It cooled down, and yeah, it wiggles a little bit with ice ages and so on, and yeah, it doesn't care. It will still exist, whether or not humans exist. So, Ding Zhongli says he's 乐观, he's an optimist, right? He's an optimist. Why is he an optimist? He believes that humans will think, we need to save ourselves. We can completely destroy this planet. We do have the option for destroying the planet. We have the capability and this is an option on the table. Ding Zhongli in 2010, I believe this was conducted, 2010, said he was optimistic. I'm kind of curious what Ding Zhongli would say nowadays. Maybe I should go email him. Ding Zhongli, 你仍然是乐观呢? Yeah. Yeah. 丁仲礼毁灭的只是物种。丁仲礼毁灭的只是物种。Yeah. So what's going to get wiped out if we decide to mess up the planet? Hopefully we don't do that. Well, we've done a lot of harm already, but at least governments are sort of starting to realize, yeah, we need to do something. America under Trump has decided to go a bit rogue, but I suspect that will last a few more years and the next administration will fix it, hopefully. Yeah, it really is probably, but long term, this is like the most important issue, right? It determines our grandchildren's future. Like, I feel like past generations went to war to secure our futures, right? And we're just asked to use less carbon. It's like, is that really a big ask? You don't have to go to Germany and fight the Nazis, right? You just have to turn your air conditioner off. Actually, I'm going to turn my air conditioner off. Like, you just have to be a little hot, right? Is it really a big ask? Anyway, 毁灭的只是物种，毁灭的是人类自己。So we're talking about this hypothetical scenario where we just do whatever we want and we just screw the environment. 所以是人类如何成就人类，不是人类如何成就地球。Yeah. So the Earth will plod along fine. It won't even object. It will be like, oh yeah, oh, it'll be a bit hot today, isn't it? 记者到底能不能成就自己最核心的东西，最终取决于什么？ Yeah. So in the actual interview, he talks about action. Yeah, he actually he says this too, but he talks about action, like doing things being the most important thing rather than just sitting and discussing. Okay, 取决于 meaning to hinge on. So X hinges on Y. Like I don't know, 你的中文水平取决于学习中文的时间, right? Your Chinese level depends on or hinges on the amount of time you spend studying Chinese. 取决于文化、文明，人类应对各种挑战的时候，人们有一种更具包容性的、更有弹性的一种文明的产生，或者是我们现有文明有很好的发展。Yeah, so he's a bit optimistic, and he's talking about like culture and civilization. Like, obviously, we're going to do this. We're going to save the planet, right? Right? You know, or or from his perspective, we're going to save ourselves, right? Yeah, save future generations. All right, 1 second. All right, so let's just give it another read. Yeah, I feel like when I'm reading this, it doesn't come out very fluently. I'm not really. Sorry, my chair is very squeaky. I don't know how audible that is. Maybe the microphone sorts it out. Anyway, when I'm reading it, I'm not feeling satisfied by the fluency. 碳排放的蛋糕怎么切? So I'm just going to read it aloud and just try to make it as fluent as possible. I'll have to read it aloud quite a number of times. 2009年12月7日，举世瞩目的联合国气候变化峰会在丹麦首都哥本哈根召开，来自192个国家和地区的代表参加了这次大会。国际社会希望在本次大会上商定下一步温室气体减排的方案，就2012到2020年全球应对气候变化问题达成一项新协议。然而，在历时近2周的会议中，参会人数已经远远超过了官方注册的15000人。会场内外硝烟四起，一片喧嚣，直到接近尾声，代表们仍然没能达成共识。这次哥本哈根给人的感觉一直是尖锐激烈的争吵。到底在吵什么？其实吵的问题很简单，就是今后不同的国家还能排放多少二氧化碳。这个排放多少，实质又是什么？简单一句话，就是说这个问题是和能源问题联系在一起的，和发展问题是休戚相关的。所以说，争论半天就是我还能排放多少，我还能使用多少能源。您的意思就是这个排放就意味着未来的发展权？这个是肯定的。这个排放权对于普通国民又意味着什么？意味着生活的改善，意味着国家的发展， 你的福利能不能进一步的增加，也意味着你有没有工作。你理解的公平是什么？人与人之间应该有个大致相等的排放空间。不过，这次的方案并没有对发展中国家提出要求，也没有要求你减多少，不是吗？它确实是没有对发展中国家减排设定绝对值，绝对量，但是它对发达国家设定了减排标准。中期2020年有25%到40%的减排，到2050年，要有80%到95%的减排，但是它有一个总量，就是全世界二氧化碳的排放总量，统统放在8000亿吨这个大盘子里。那么，等于这个蛋糕的数量是确定下来了，也就是说，今后发达国家的人均排放权是发展中国家的2.3倍。尽管减80%，一步一步往下减，但是发达国家基数大，是发展中国家的4.8倍。如果国际上对今后的排放进行严格的限定的话，那么二氧化碳的排放权就会变成一种非常稀缺的、不可多得的商品。就是你想要，还有可能，你不够排，你就得买。前提是你承认二氧化碳，放配额是一种稀缺商品，真金白银。那么这个8000亿吨分配的过程当中，多分一点、少分一点的多大的利益，是多大的利益？他现在提出的是一个概念，就是说我不管你是人均还是说贫富，现在只以碳排放大国来算。根据 G8的方案，27个发达国家取走的是多少蛋糕？取走的是44%。发达国家多少人口？11亿人口，余下的55亿人，分56%的蛋糕。那么你说公平不公平？这个方案本身就没有接人口计算。那你算算账，假如告诉你，中国从2020年以后，每年花1万亿人民币去购买二氧化碳排放权，你会怎么想？是不是有失公允？换句话说，我对公平的理解，我把排放权视为发展权，视为基本人权，所以人与人之间，应该有个大致相等的排放空间，维护发展中国家的利益，保障发展中国家的发展权利。落实联合国千年发展计划，这难道不是人类的利益吗？假如像您所说的，现在这个方案发达国家又不接受的话，如果他 就这么拖下去，这几年下去，会不会温室效应导致的全球变暖的状况更糟糕了？我很乐观。我研究几年以来的环境气候演化，这不是人类成就地球的问题，是人类成就自己的问题，跟成就地球是没有关系的。地球用不着你成就，地球比现在再高10几度的时候有的是，地球二氧化碳的浓度比现在高十倍的时候，也有的是。地球，不都是这么演化过来的，都好好的。毁灭的是只是物种，毁灭的只是物种，毁灭的是人类自己。所以是人类如何成就人类，不是人类如何成就地球。到底能不能成就自己最核心的东西，最终取决于什么？取决于文化、文明、人类应对各种挑战的时候，人们有一种更具包容性的、更有弹性的一种文明的产生，或者是我们现有文明有很好的发展。All right, shall we do vocab? Came out a bit better that time. 商定 yeah, so 商量 is the verb. If you stick ding after a verb, it turns it into kind of an agreement that you do not wish to change. Yeah, or something that's unchanging. Something like 锁定, 锁 meaning to lock, such as a door or like a padlock. 锁定, you lock it closed so it's unchanging. 决定, yeah, so you decide and it's not going to change. 决定. There's plenty of others like that. Oh, what's the other one? There's a few others. Anyway. 温室, greenhouse. This is literally greenhouse. Oh, I didn't read this. Do I need to read this? 我们应当共同商定处理办法. So we should negotiate and therefore lock in a 处理办法, a method of solving this problem. 温室, solving a problem. 温室 is a greenhouse, literal greenhouse. Literal in the sense of it's actually a greenhouse, not in the sense of a greenhouse being green. It's glass, so it's usually see-through. And yeah, 温室气体, the greenhouse gases, and 温室效应, greenhouse effect. They're the same in English and Chinese. 减排, well, 减 meaning to reduce, like in 减肥, reduce fat, or to lose weight. And 排 here refers to emissions, 排放, 也减小有害物质的排放量. Yeah, it is general, but most of the time it's going to be like carbon dioxide or other emissions, right? 遏制减小二氧化碳的排放, 也节能减排. 应对 is to deal with something like a problem. You're faced with a problem, how do you deal with it? 应对方法, 应对措施, 应对危机. Yeah, 应对危机, you're dealing with a crisis. 历史, this is just historically, right? 经过的时间, 也这场战争历时3年. It's not exactly what I was thinking. Okay, maybe this counts as a new word for me then. Or at least, there's no star, so I have studied it at some point. So it's referring to a period of time that is of a historical scale. 历史, 历时8年. Okay, not necessarily. 历时3个小时. Yeah, so it lasted. So it lasted a certain amount of time. Okay. 事情经过的时间. So this war lasted for 3 years. All right. 喧嚣. 喧嚣 is hubbub. This character 嚣, I think I've only ever seen in this word. 喧嚣. 喧, 寒暄的集句, right? Is it 寒暄? 寒暄? Not 寒暄. What's the word? What's the word for like just normal chit chat? What's the word? I forget. No, 喧哗. Han Xuan. Yeah, this one. Han Xuan. Han literally is winter. Xuan was something like, oh, it is just noise. All right. So yeah, Han Xuan de Xuan. This is like, 我们寒暄了几句 is what you say when it's like you're just making basic chit chat and so on before diving into appropriate matters. 微声. Yeah, this is a new one for me. Looks like we studied it at some point. Wei. Wei is tail. Sheng is noise. Yeah, 事情发展的最后部分, yeah, 结果部分. Okay, 结尾. All right, so it's quite similar to 结尾. It's just what happens at the end of a course of events. All right, 共识, consensus or general understanding. 共同的认识, 经过多次讨论, 双方达成了共识. Okay, so by going through multiple discussions, both parties came to a consensus or agreement. 尖锐 refers to things that are sharp, but usually it's used to mean something like astute. 对立激烈 Okay, 矛盾尖锐声音尖锐 Oh, maybe astute is not a good translation. It's, I don't know how to explain it. 激烈 Yes. No, there must be a better translation. 尖锐 intense? Yeah, intense might work. Maybe sharp, but sharp in the sense of like an argument. Your sharp words, you're making people angry. 争吵 to quarrel. Yeah, that's not, I don't think that's especially hard. 排放, we already saw this. This is to emit. 排放污水, 排放二氧化碳. Yeah, 尾气排放. 尾气 is exhaust gases. 排放污水, oh, they use 排放污水, wastewater. 二氧化碳 CO2. There's no difference in Chinese and English between 二氧化碳. This is the chemical. This is the chemical nomenclature in Chinese, right? 二氧化碳. And it's the same in English, carbon dioxide. Its nomenclature is thought up by chemists, right? Consistent with other chemicals. 学质, something like essence. 本质, 实质上, 实质性, 问题的实质. Yeah. 能源 energy source or just sometimes just energy. Yeah. 可以产生能量的物质. 化石能源, 节约能源, 新能源. Yeah, the different energy sources. I think it's also used figuratively sometimes. You have like, some sort of inspiration or something. It's your source of energy. But my understanding is it can be used figuratively, but I'm not 100% sure. 确定 is something like designate. 设置确定. So we saw the thing before, right? 设定. So we're locking it in. So 设置 is to set something, right? 设定目标, so you're locking in a target or goal. 设定密码, you're locking in your password. All right, you're designating a password. 统统 thoroughly. 全都 yeah. 统统忘掉了 I forgot everything. 人均 is per capita. Yeah, per capita. Yeah. 按每人平均计算 yeah. 人均消费人均支出 yeah, so averaged over the population. All right. 基数 yeah, 基数 it's like something like a fundamental number, like it's like a base number. It's something in this ballpark. They used it in the textbook to mean something like there was a starting point. Yeah. Where was it? 设定了目标 Where's the 基数 I don't know. It was here somewhere, wasn't it? Where was it? Yeah, I'm sure it was here. Yeah, 基数 Yeah, so this is what it would turn out to be at the end. It's kind of the best case scenario, right? But yeah, as over time, it's going to get as bad as this as well, right? Yeah, so it's kind of some kind of, I don't know, base number of something. Yeah, 作为计算标准或起点的数目 Yeah, so 标准 so a standard or starting point number. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a new word for me, but at the same time, it's fairly obvious if you know the characters 基 and 数. 限定 yeah, we got the ding thing happening again, don't we? 限定 限 meaning 限制 restricted. Restricted and kind of locked into a certain restriction. 限定规定时间、空间或动作的范围，限定作用。So some sort of restricted use, the scope, yeah, 限定范围 different scope or use of something, right? You shouldn't go outside that one. 稀缺 is scarce. When you talk about commerce, you talk about the scarcity. So things that are scarce tend to have more value. 稀缺 缺少稀少稀缺资源稀缺能源配额something like quota 分配的数额进口配额进口限制 Yeah, so like there's this amount and we have to distribute it in some way. There's like I don't know, some quantity, I don't know, sure. Yeah, I don't know how to explain that. 配额 Maybe it's the allocated, 分配的 yeah, it's the allocated quantity. So you've got a certain total, you get this much and you get that much and you get this much. Yeah, so that would be, it'd just be allocation or something like this, right? 余下 Yeah, so yu is used to mean excess in addition to a certain quantity. 余下 would be remainder, yeah. 剩下来的多出来的1000元用去600还余下400 it's also used in maths, is it not? Like if you divide 17 by 5, you get a remainder of 2. Is this the one? I think it's that one. I'm not sure if it's this one or if it's just maybe it's just u by itself. I don't remember. Here. Not 100% sure. Anyway. 余下 it's what's left over. Yeah, here it's usually numerical or 剩下 is better for non-numerical things. Yeah, anyway. 算账 Okay, literally like calculate a count. 算账 so it's used figuratively to mean like settle an account such as to get revenge. I believe it's got that meaning. But yeah, here 统计, 统计 is statistics, but it's used as a verb in Chinese. So statistics. I mean, if that was a verb in English, it's that. 计算账目. So you're doing you're calculating statistics and doing statistics. 算账. But also used for revenge, right? This one. Settle accounts with someone. Yeah. You're going to get even with them. 公允. Yeah, this one was a new one for me. 允,公允. Okay, 公平恰当. So it seems like a fancy way of saying fair then. Fair and appropriate. So the 允 is not 允许的允. 有失公允, 谢公允. I feel like I haven't seen this word before. It may be fairly rare. 保障, sorry, not 保障, 保障. I may be mispronouncing it. There is another Zhang. There is a maybe it's Biao. Yeah, it's Biao Zhang. So don't make my mistake then. Biao Zhang, Bao Zhang, Bao Zhang. Okay. Fourth tone. I better just double check. Bao Zhang. Yeah, it is definitely fourth tone. Bao Zhang. All right, so I need to get that tone right, don't I? Bao Zhang, Bao Zhang. Bao Zhang, it's kind of a Bao Zheng or something like this, but Bao Zhang is to kind of ensure something. Yeah, usually this sort of stuff like rights, this sort of thing provided, like lofty high level things usually provided by a government to the citizens, or not provided, ensured or protected. Yeah, 保护, protected. 生命. So the government protects the citizens' lives. 财产. 财产 is property in the sense of material property. 权利, rights, and so on. 绝不受侵犯和破坏. So you're protecting your, I don't know, your property rights and so on. Yeah, 保障人身安全, 保障公民权利, yeah, 保障. All right, I have to get this tone right in the future. 落实. 落实, I kind of translate this to something like hit the ground. It refers to something like when you're kind of implementing something, right? You have I don't know how to explain this. You have yeah, it's maybe enacted or carried out or something like this. I don't know. Let's see what they define it as. 使计划、措施、政策等得以实现。实现 is to realize. So you're realizing a plan, 措施, procedures, 政策, policy. 落实计划. Yeah, so you're carrying out the plan. So there's for policies like government policies, they often go through multiple stages of negotiations and like drafting and so on. So you're past that stage, you're actually implementing it. There's another one, 实施, which is very similar. 落实任务. 实施. This one. Oops. 实施. 实施. 实际实施. Put into effect, implement. 落实. I don't really know the difference. So hold on. Yeah, this one. Carry out. Yeah. 落到实处. 得到实现. I don't know. It's going from what's on paper to what's in reality. All right. 效应 is effect. 蝴蝶效应, the butterfly effect, that sort of thing. It's used in a lot of cases where it translates directly from English. So if you think of X effect, there's a small world effect, right? 小世界效应. I presume that's the same. Is it? Oh no, it's this small world phenomenon. Yeah, phenomenon is. Oh, I should know this. 现象. Well, that took way too long. 现象. Yeah, 效应 effect. 蝴蝶效应, right? 蝴蝶效应. The butterfly effect. So this is the old a butterfly in Brazil flaps its wings and causes a tornado in England or something like this. Yeah, if you study complex networks and things like that, you see this kind of this cascading chain of events where something small, for want of a nail, lost the war kind of thing. Yeah, there's this kind of like tiny thing is minor changes in the initial conditions. I should say dynamic systems rather than complex networks. Yeah, dynamic systems is the one. Sorry. 效应, so butterfly effect, you change a minor change in the initial conditions and suddenly, everything changes. The weird butterfly effect, right? There's different types. 热效应, heat effect, 光电效应. This is 光电, photoelectric effect. Wow, is that really the photoelectric effect? This is the one that Einstein got a Nobel Prize for. 光电效应. Yeah, we studied this in physics. I think it came up in year 3, like at university. 光电效应. Yeah, the photoelectric effect. So most people think, or a lot of people falsely believe that Einstein got a Nobel Prize for relativity, which he's very famous for. Turns out he got it for the photoelectric effect. This is like one of his side projects. Yeah, Einstein, eh? The photoelectric effect. Yeah, this was quite important in the understanding of quantum phenomena, right? 氧化. Yeah, so there's 氧化 and 生化. No, 进化. Sorry, 氧化 and 进化. Also 变化. 变化 is just general change. 氧化 is sort of a long-term gradual change. 进化, 进化 is evolution in the sense of biological evolution. But 进化 can be used figuratively to mean 氧化. And 演化 can also be used to refer to biological evolution as well. So there's a bit of overlap, but I prefer to stick to 进化 referring to biological evolution and 演化 referring to just evolution, say, of a situation or something like this. Yeah. 发展变化也多觉自然界的变化 Really? 自然演化艺术演化 I kind of feel like this is not entirely accurate. But maybe, I'm like, if someone's written that there's a reason for it, right? Yeah, so natural evolution, but this is like letting a course of events evolve naturally, such as your relationship. Yeah, for biological evolution, I think it would be better to use 进化. But all right, 拯救. 拯救 is one of the words to mean to rescue. 援救, 挽救, or just 救. 帮助使脱离危难. 援助. 朋友们合力 combine their efforts. 把他从破产的边缘拯救过来. Yeah, they rescued, okay, so from some 危难, crisis or disaster. I don't know. I don't tend to use this word very often. I have multiple other words. Yeah, there's also 挽救. There's too many other words, right? 挽救. Yeah, 挽救. 挽救. Oh, what happened? Oh, I pushed that. 挽救. No, not 挽救. 援救. Oops. 援救. Yep, 援救. So this one is appropriate for a mountaineer who's gone wrong, right? They need saving, right? That's my understanding. So there's 援救, 挽救, 成就. Whoops. Oh, sorry, not 成就, 拯救, 拯救. There is also 成就, right? Not a 成就. Oh, sorry, this one's 成就. Completely unrelated. 拯救, 拯救. I'm kind of curious if I got the pronunciation right when I was reading it aloud. 拯救. I'm not sure. Maybe I got it wrong. I should pay attention. I think there's more. 营救, yeah, 营救. 解救, I don't know that one. 挽救, we said 救援. Oh yeah, there's 救援. 救助, yeah, that's the thing. Okay, so 拯救, 解救. 拯救 is better for like figurative things like businesses and so on. Okay. 解救, free by force. 强行夺取. So, okay. Oh, this is actually quite useful. 营救, 救援, 救助, 救助. So this is for people who are in trouble. All right. Of a company, 拯救, 解救. Company business. In the example we saw, the economy. 解狱. All right, this is to break someone out of prison. Seizure of 强行夺取. That's not really rescue. Yeah. 来救了他. Yeah, you can just use 救 by itself as well. All right. 拯救. 浓度. 浓 refers to something that is dense. 浓度 is density. Right? 浓. Yeah, so there's words like 浓缩, 浓缩铀. 浓缩 is enriched, such as 浓缩铀, enriched uranium. 浓缩咖啡, or like concentrated coffee. I think it's like espresso in Chinese. So 浓, yeah, you can describe a liquid as 浓, as it's dense or thick, right? 某种成分的相对含量. Yeah, 高浓, 血糖浓度, blood sugar density, more like concentration, right? 海水含氧的浓度是多少? Yeah, so the 浓度 is the density, right? Here, maybe concentration is a better description. Concentration. 毁灭, to wipe out something. 彻底消灭, yeah, 毁灭证据, to destroy the evidence. 物种, species. Yeah. 濒危物种. This is endangered species. 濒临危害濒临危害的物种. Yeah, but 濒危物种 is a technical term. It's the precise characters you want to use for endangered species. Yeah, there's a classification of species like endangered, at risk, whatever. Yeah, 珍贵物种, like precious species. All right, 取决, usually it comes with a U. 取决于, I don't think I've ever seen it without the U. Yeah, 多跟有余字. So it hinges on X, hinges on Y. Presumably they're going to go into that in the grammar section. It's a very, very common, yeah, here it is, 取决, very, very common grammar point. So we'll get into that in the grammar section. It's something I use a lot, 取决于. It's definitely worth learning. 包容, tolerance. 包容 as a verb. 宽容, 大度包容. 一位包容. I think most of the time it functions as a noun. 包容. 包容孩子. Maybe. 弹性 elasticity. Oh yeah, often used figuratively. Elasticity, but in the text it was figurative. Yeah, you have some level of flexibility. Yeah. 比喻事实依实际需要和加以调整，变通的加以这个加以调整变通的性质。All right, so it's a property of entities, unspecific entities, where it's like it's possible to adjust or 变通. What is 变通? Adapt? Sound like adapt. Yeah, literally elasticity. It is the physical thing, like, stretchiness, like your trousers or bathers, swimming attire. 变通. I should go swimming. Flexible, adaptive. Yeah, I kind of inferred the meaning. Maybe I'll count that as a new word for me. Whoa, did we get lag? I'm using this camera. We shouldn't be getting lag. We're getting lag. Okay, I'm going to have to check it out. Right. Sorry, there was camera issue. All right. 弹性 elasticity. 弹性工作制 So an elastic work system. Yeah, so that would refer to a kind of, it's sort of a flexible, adaptable arrangement. Yeah, 弹性立场. 立场 is a standpoint, such as a political standpoint. So if you have an adaptable standpoint, it means as more information comes in, you'll be willing to change. That would be my understanding of that. Yeah, 弹性. So, yeah, one thing I've learnt or realized over the time learning Chinese is that you want a kind of flexible and even robust study method. I'm constantly changing my methods for learning Chinese, and why? Why is a good question. I'm glad you asked. Yeah, because the methods I use now are not the methods I used when I was a beginner, right? So the methods I used when I was a beginner are not appropriate, even useless for me now. Almost useless for me now. But at the time, they were incredibly valuable. I wouldn't have gotten here had I skipped that stage, kind of thing. So you need to be a bit flexible when with study methods. All right, that's the end of the vocab. Okay, 联合国气候变化峰会. Yeah, this comes after the main text, which, all right, it would have helped back here when I studied it originally. Yeah, I don't know. Where's the appropriate place to put all this information in a textbook? What is the optimal textbook design? 即联合国气候变化大会从1995年起，每年在世界不同地区轮换举行。Hold on. So every year, right? So every year, 15,000 people fly to some country and discuss the environment, and thereby pollute. That's a bit of an issue, isn't it? Anyway, 丁仲礼. Okay, 中国科学院地质研究所古生物学及地层学专家，中国科学院院士. So he's an academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, something in that ballpark. G8. Yeah, so some of these definitions have changed over time. G8 G8 及八国集团. So these are the 8 major economies around the world. I'm not sure if they're the 8 largest. Maybe it's just Western countries or something. 世界8大工业国：美国、英国、法国、德国、日本、意大利、加拿大和俄罗斯. All right, so these are the most developed countries in the world, are they? Russia. The Lianmeng. Okay. I'm not precisely sure of how a country gets added to this list. But if they're putting an 8 there, they're obviously not intending on adding more. unless like we kick out France. Sorry, France, but we're going to make fun of you. 2014年3月25日，美国宣布，奥巴马和 G3 集团其他国家领导人已决定，暂停俄罗斯G8成员资格。How did Russia get evicted? All right. You got kicked out. All right. Well, we're not kicking out France, we're kicking out Russia. All right. All right. Do you want to go into the grammar? How much? We need to plan ahead. Grammar words and so on. Shall we do this in this video or the next video? Let's do it in the next video, because what I want to do is read paper. Sorry, 1 second. Right, so this is the paper by Ding Zhongli and co-authors. So this is the paper that relates to this text. There's an interview in the news, and this is the paper of this. I'm not going to read the whole lot, but I might read a little bit. Okay. 国际温室气体排放方案评估及中国长期排放权讨论. So let's see, because Ding Zhongli, Professor Ding Zhongli had some very firm opinions about this. 本文对 IPCC、UNDP 和 OECD 等7个全球二氧化碳减排方案做了模拟。What does 做了模拟 mean? 模拟 is mock in the sense of 模拟考试. I'm not sure. 做了模拟。发现在分配2006至2050年各个排放权时，这些方案不但没有考虑历史上1900到2005年。Yeah, so criticism 1, yeah, okay, 发达国家的人均累计排放量已是发展中国家7.54倍的事实. All right, so that's criticism 1, right? Criticism 1 is that, so that this is for the IPCC, right? Or is it all of them? Maybe it's all of them. So they all overlook one thing, is that historically currently from the time this paper was published, developed countries, they already have emitted a lot of carbon to become developed countries. So, and they're leaving off this rather important fact. All right, that's a fair criticism, right? It's a very major factor to account for. Well, you've already emitted a lot of carbon. Why? You've had your turn. You should emit less than us, right? A little bit like that. But it should be factored in, I think. 而且还为发达国家设计了比发展中国家大 2.3至6.7倍的人均未来排放权。Yeah, so that came up in the text. So he said, he didn't give, so it's 2.3 to 4.8 in the text. This one says 6.7. I don't know. I don't know why the difference is there. I don't think I want to delve into that level of scrutiny. 这将大大剥夺发展中国家的发展权益。Yeah, so this will deprive developing countries of their right to development. 由此，本文明确指出 ，IPCC 等方案违背了国际关系中的公平正义原则。So IPC violates sort of international fairness principles. 也违背了共同但有区别的责任原则 and violates the principle of 共同 unity but different united but different responsibilities in the context of climate change. 因此没有资格作为今后国际气候变化谈判的参考。本文同时预测了中国在强力推动低碳技术应用。Let me try again. 本文同时预测了中国在强力推动低碳技术应用情景下，2006至2050年的排放预期，并将此结果同全球其他国家和国家集团做了比较，发现即使在 450至470 ppmv 这样严格的大气二氧化碳浓度控制目标下，中国亦有足够的逻辑和道义支持获得与这个预期相当的排放权。So, all right. So one point was historically developed countries have emitted more carbon. The second point was these proposals or these whatever you want to call them, policies, treaties, generally do not ascribe developing countries the same rights as developed countries. Even though developing countries probably require it more. Yeah. So developed countries want to maintain their standard of living, I guess. And there's this other one. So this is more concrete. This is a China-specific policy, right? This is China's policy. So some kind of forecast. Not entirely sure of the details, but he's arguing that it's kind of I don't know. It's like logical principled, and maintains certain rights, right? So deserves to be taken into account. How much of this do I want to read? Maybe we'll just read the introduction. Oh, I'm going to look at the conclusion as well. 一年，在一定时段内，将大气二氧化碳浓度控制在某个适当的水平之内，目前已成为全球政治共识。尽管在科学院内部针对诸如气温对二氧化碳浓度的敏感性这样的核心科学问题，并没有取得一致结论。All right, so very important question, widely regarded as critical, but there's no consensus. And this is not consensus on the science, it's consensus on the policy. So, okay. Hold on. No, it's 针对诸如 that they're not there's no consensus on what 核心科学问题. No, it's a science question. They're talking about what counts as 针对诸如气温对这个的浓度敏感性这样的核心科学问题，并没有取得一致结论。What do you reckon this means? He is saying science, the science. So in 科学界内部 in the inner science circles, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what this is saying. 如果要在操作层面上完成对二氧化碳浓度的控制，就必须有一个为全球大部分国家所接受的责任体系，而这个责任体系中，各国今后的排放权分配必定成为焦点。So we're talking about allocating like how much each country can emit. Yeah, 针对住 What do you reckon it means? 尽管在科学界内部，针对诸如气温对二氧化碳浓度的敏感性这样的核心科学问题，并没有取得一致结论。In what sense? I don't know. Anyway, let's continue. 由于二氧化碳排放主要来自交通、冶炼、建筑、电力、日常生活等领域，而低碳技术难以在今后一段较长时间内大范围应用。绝大部分发展中国家还没有完成工业化和城市化。Yeah, so he's talking about countries like yet to be industrialized and urbanized. And this is where it comes from. Okay, 发达国家又很难放弃高消耗的生活方式。Developed countries are very unwilling to give up like heavy consumption based lifestyles. 所以想要建立一个公平合理的全球责任体系，将会非常困难，并必定会经历一场激烈的利益博弈。Yeah, this is kind of game, high stakes game of like how much everyone gets allocated and so on. 事实上，尽管许多国家的政治家表达了应对全球变暖的良好意愿，但并没有真正做出具有自我牺牲精神的承诺，也没有从建立全球责任体系的角度提出过全面合理的控制排放方案。So, we're talking about countries. Yeah, sure, they think climate change is a major problem. We need to reduce our carbon emissions, and yet at the same time, we need to Like the politicians are not actually doing anything; they're just saying it's very important, kind of thing. 我们知道，在定下某个时间节点，what is 节点？什么节点大气二氧化碳浓度目标后，到这个节点，节点值，人类可排放的二氧化碳总量就随之确定。因此，所谓减排，实质上就是确定这个总量如何在各国间分配，而分配过程就是利益博弈过程。Yeah, what is 节点? So we need to know. So I'm looking it up. 节点 node nodule. All right. That didn't really help very much. Can I Google it? Oh. Yeah. All right. Maybe it's like point in time or something. So yeah, it's sort of the same thing. There's this like game we're trying to optimize profit for ourselves. 到目前为止，国际上已提出许多今后排放空间分配方案，其中大部分选择了减排路径，只有少数部分从分配排放权出发。由于这两条路径，会起到殊途同归。Is that a 成语? I think maybe I vaguely have seen it before. 殊途同归。殊途同归的效果。So this is different roads, same destination, different return. Maybe I'll Google it. Same destination, different routes, same destination. 殊途同归. Maybe it's like different means to the same end. 说到底，均有一个公正性的问题。OK， 本文将对国际上影响较大的7个方案做出评估。评估的角度为：如果照此方案实行，今后各国的人均排放权有多大的差异？本文采用的评判标准为：差异越大，方案就越不公平。这是因为我们接受一个已得到反复论证的道理：排放权为基本人权。此外，本文还结合过去人均累计排放历史，论证了中国今后理应获得的排放空间。All right, so the paper has 2 points. One is all right, well, it makes a point here that it's like established that 排放权为基本人权. So there's some sort of human right to emit carbon. In a sense, yes. Like it's very hard to do agriculture and things like that without emitting carbon. But at the same time, it certainly gets if it gets kind of abstract, like you have a right to develop, and some companies are wasteful at times and so on. So it's not as straightforward as that, I think. And the second one was the historical thing. So he's claiming that China ought to have some kind of space for development, because historically countries that are now developed outputted a lot of carbon in the past. They're still doing it now, but they're trying to reduce, right? Yeah. All right, so he goes through a whole bunch of policies. I say he, there's 4 of them. All 4 of them go through a whole bunch of policies and analyze them. Let's skip all that. Is there a conclusion? Okay. 讨论和结论。本文着重讨论4个问题。All right, we have 4 points. Let's see if we can understand the 4 points. 第一，本文的计算结果表明，由发达国家为主提出的控制大气二氧化碳浓度的各个方案，既不考虑发达国家在过去排放中占了绝对多数的事实。all right， 又要在今后人均排放权分配上使发达国家大大高于发展中国家。Yeah, so historically it's been in developed countries' favor or and now the proposals are still very much in developed countries' favors. 如果每吨二氧化碳排放权以30美元计 ，a ton of carbon emissions is $30. OK， 那么在这样的设计下，发展中国家将形成大于10万亿美元的损失。OK， $1 billion in losses. OK， 因而可以明确的说，这些方案的提出不是基于国际关系中的公平正义原则。So where does this number come from? So we're just giving a ton of carbon dioxide emissions, this price. And is this what they've already emitted? Is this what 发展中国家将形成大于这个 Oh, so this is what developing countries would be priced at. Okay. Yeah, so it's not fair. I don't know, like, I mean, it's a major problem. I mean, I have no idea of if that's a lot. Anyway, 另外，这些方案大都是在减排名义下提出来的。以前我们讨论过，由于历史排放量、当前排放技术等方面的巨大差异，如果确定各国减排比例作为构建控制大气二氧化碳浓度的全球责任体系，就会遮掩历史排放与人均排放的巨大差异，造成不公正后果。在这里，我们进一步提出减排话语下的陷阱这个概念来做更深入的分析。There's some sort of trap. I feel like there's a bit of repetition here. 这个陷阱是这样构成的。第一步是论证全球温度对大气二氧化碳浓度的高敏感性。Okay, I don't see the problem with that. 第二步是强调升温可能对人类带来的灾难性影响。Why is this a trap? 第三步是做出价值判断，即要在本世纪内将 工业革命以来的全球增温控制在2摄氏度以内。Or should I say 2个摄氏度？2摄氏度之内。第4步是计算出不超过2摄氏度增温的大气二氧化碳浓度及二氧化碳当量浓度不超过这个。第5步 ，hang on, you said 4, right? Didn't you say 4? Oh, sorry, 4 items. This is a different thing. Sorry, I misremember. 第5步，提出发达国家率先减排，并确定具体的比例。OK。第6步是确定发展中国家在长期减排中的任务。这里面是最为关键的一点是，在450 ppmv 的目标浓度确定后，2006到2050年间，人类可通过化石燃料和水泥生产产生的排放量，又随着确定，即使海洋和陆地今后对排放的碳继续以54%的比例吸收，人类可排放的总量只能在255.1亿 BTC 左右。在这样的总量中，发达国家确定率先减排比例后，余下的即为发展中国家的排放权，并且所剩不多。以 IPCC 方案为例，附件一国家需确定中期、长期定量减排目标，而非附件一国家不必确定。表面很公正 ，OK。实际上为附件一国家安排了比非附件一国家人均大于2.3倍的人均排放权，只不过没有在文字上表达出来而已。All right, so this is a pretty harsh criticism. So this is what was it, the IPCC policy? It says it didn't apply to developing countries, but the fact that developed countries are saying, I'm taking this much of the cake, yeah, it doesn't leave much for the rest. I mean, in theory, the developing countries can emit as much carbon as they like, but, they're going to harm themselves in doing so they can't realistically do that. 这就是我们所说的陷阱。对这个陷阱，发展中国家参与国际谈判的人士，未必已经充分认识到。Actually, that's a good point. So developing countries are not recognized in the negotiations, right? Because the policy doesn't affect them, right? It doesn't mention them. It only applies to developed countries. But yeah, when you've only got 8,000 E, and maybe it's 800 billion tons of carbon that can be in the atmosphere without, completely destroying our lives and so on. Yeah, it's not like there's stuff left over. It's like, I'm allowed to do this. And it's like, oh, okay, well, leave some for the rest. But no, it doesn't work like that. Yeah, it's a fair criticism. And And because you say this, I'm only making this policy to restrict what I'm doing. Then developing countries don't even get a seat at the table. They don't even get to discuss it, right? 比如他们中的部分人一再强调发达国家到2020年只比1990年减排25%是不够的，应该减排40%。Do you reckon any of them did it? Like reached 40% reduction by 2020? Did any of them do that? Any developed country? I think there are some, maybe like Liechtenstein or something. OK， 姑且不论发达国家能否做到如此大幅度的减排，即使他们接受这个要求，那么他们2006至2050年的人均排放权将从77.28 TC 减到61.23 TC， 而非附件一国家只能从23.15 TC 增加到26.22 TC， 二者的差别还在2.3倍。概研制，如果接受发达国家自己提出的中期减排目标25%，像中国这样的国家，到2019年即用完排放权，即使发达国家Yeah, sometimes they come to the wrong door. What were we talking about? Yeah, so yeah, they have the 外卖. Everyone orders food online nowadays. It's because it's so ridiculously cheap. But sometimes they come to your door and it's like, yeah, no, you're in the wrong building. Yeah. So yeah, I handled it pretty well this time. But yeah, I'm getting kind of used to this random people knocking on the door, and it's like, yeah, gonna be honest, didn't order anything. Yeah. Sometimes they get the building mixed up. They come to the right floor and the right room, but there is another building like A, B, C, D. And they need like A 楼, B 楼, C 楼, D 楼, and they come to the wrong building. Where were we? I don't know. 即使发达国家较发展中国家的要求设定中期减排40%的目标，也仅仅将这个时间推到2021年而已。So, are they saying that it's just unsustainable or something? If developed countries did what if developing countries did what developed countries are doing, 由此我们可以看出，在450 ppmv 目标下，发达国家率先为本国设立减排目标，最终的效果是剥夺了发展中国家的排放权。Yeah, depriving developing countries of their right to develop. 排放权 the right to emit carbon. All right. 第二，笔者继续 So 笔者 is the present author, or in this case, the present authors. There's multiple. 笔者继续坚持认为，用某个时间点开始的人均累计排放来分配今后的排放权，最能体现公平正义原则。 我们在以前的论文中，主要是从一个国家当前工业基础、呃城市化水平、人均 GDP 和国民福利等方面，同人均累计排放的高度相关性来论证这个指标的合理性。Okay, so they argued in another paper the reasonableness of all this. But the main point is that it's per capita, I think, and the time period per capita and time period was from when. Sorry, did it say time period? I thought it said the time period, but maybe it's not. 我们以前的论文中主要从一个国家当前 Yeah, this one. So that's the time period. And the time period should be measured from when a country like establishes its industrial base. Is that right? 从一个国家当前工业基础 No, not exactly that, is it? 当前 implies the current, right? 从一个国家当前工业基础 But no, it's the current one, the current blah, blah, blah. And so we need to account for things like developing countries. They need to use more carbon to catch up to already developed countries. All right. 这里要特别说明的是，我们计算结果，表明一些发达国家现在已经形成排放赤字。赤字 here is used figuratively. This means debt, right? It refers to debt, literally red numbers, red letters, I guess, red characters. So this refers to debt, some kind of carbon emission debt. 但我们并非如一些人所理解的那样，并非如一。Is this a 成语？No，如一些，并非如一些人所理解的那样。主张这些国家今后不能再有任何排放，而是主张这些国家应该用资金和技术来交换今后的排放权。All right. So the counter argument. So the authors are saying developing countries should have the right to kind of catch up, and these in terms of carbon, and the already developed countries are kind of in debt for the carbon they've already emitted. And the counter argument is that it should be replaced by. The counter argument is that developing countries should use technology to replace the carbon. 一些学者也分别从碳预算和碳排放账户概念出发，论证过同样的观点。有一些学者认为，发达国家过去的高排放是在并不明了二氧化碳危害性的情况下出现的，因而不能要求其对过去排放做出补偿。So what was the argument? Why do they not have to make up for past emissions of carbon? 并不明了这个危害性。So this 明了 refers to confirmed. It sounds like an excuse, really. Carbon's carbon, right? I mean, if you're just emitting stuff into the environment, it affects things. Anyway, so the excuse was they don't have to make up for past carbon emissions. because they didn't understand the threat, something like that. 我们认为词说难哦，词说 is this a phrase like a word or something? 词说 I don't know. 我们认为词说难以成立。首先，科学家认为二氧化碳增温效应已有一个世纪左右。Yeah, so here we're saying it's for a century. So we've known about carbon dioxide causing global warming. Yes, but early on it was kind of hypothetical and tentative. I think in the 80s, if I remember correctly, it was quite firmly established. And there's like no wiggle room anymore after that. Yeah, when I was young, maybe even late 70s. All right, so where were we? Okay, 其次，在认识到二氧化碳确有危害之后，应该按照谁污染谁治理的原则来解决这个危害。Yeah, this is logical. Like, would you use that? Would it be anywhere else? Like, if I'm littering, it's like you're littering, pick it up. You shouldn't do it. It's really an obvious common sense principle. And it's the same with carbon. It's like you're pumping this carbon in, all right, you got to fix it, and you cause the problem. And in a lot of things in general, like even if you didn't know you were causing a problem, you've still got to fix the problem, right? The problem still exists. That happens a lot of the time, right? Yeah, could you imagine like maybe someone who didn't know how to drive saying, "Oh, it's okay, I ran over your children. I didn't know how to drive. I didn't understand the consequences." It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Yeah. Okay, 应该按照谁污染谁治理的原则来解决这个危害。也有一些学者认为，发达国家在历史时期的排放，如要当代人负责，似乎有失公平。So this one sounds more reasonable, right? So the current generation paying for the mistakes of past generations. All right, so what's their counter? 对此，我们首先要认识到，发达国家当代人之所以过上高福利、高标准的生活，是同他们祖辈完成了大量基础设施建设有关。他们祖辈的建设过程就是高排放过程。All right, so we're arguing that their ancestors emitted a lot of carbon, and that's what they owe their quality of life to. 因此，历史上的高排放并非同他们无关 and it's not unrelated to the current generation. Yeah, it's a tricky problem. 棘手的问题. So, how much can you be responsible for your ancestors? Were it national debt, yeah, that just is for your country, right? If one prime minister takes on debt, then the next prime minister will have to pay it, kind of thing. It doesn't just disappear. Interesting. 此外，我们也认为，在国际谈判时，选择合理的时间起点来计算人均累计排放，确实应该为一个十分严肃的议题。So it's basically starting point? What are we counting from? And do we include past historical carbon emissions? 第三，对450 ppmv 目标，不应设定的太过刚性。刚性 this is the antonym of 弹性 right? This is like inflexible. Rigidity, like the opposite of 弹性。IPCC 报告之所以确定450 ppmv 目标，是在是在气温对二氧化碳浓度高度敏感的认识下做出的，并且主要来自数值模拟。模拟 here is model. 模型 why is it 模拟？数值模拟 maybe it's simulation, like digital simulation of this, something like this. 并非来自对过去100年记录的严格评估。在目前的情况下，讨论设定什么样的一个浓度目标似乎不合时宜。但至少可以预先确定一个通过定期评估来不断调整浓度目标的机制。So they're arguing against using a kind of model and using a model rather than actual data. Is that the idea? The 评估来 and constantly updating this. Oh, right. So not using a fixed target. Oh, right. So this, this target is fixed based on at the time models. Okay, that makes sense. And they're arguing that that target should not be fixed. It should be adapted to models as they improved. Is it going to change a lot? I don't know. There may be things like discoveries, like oh, this particular greenhouse gas doesn't affect the climate as much as we thought, or this one affects it a lot more than we thought, or there's this other greenhouse gas we didn't even know existed. Maybe. Makes sense. It should be adjusted accordingly. 毕竟从本文给出的数据看，450 ppmv 的目标定得太高了。在这个目标下，即使发达国家实现他们的承诺，发展中国家今后必须将排放水平控制在他们今天的人均排放之下。So the assumption is that this is inappropriate because developing countries will want to develop, and this fixed goal will need to change. 这是绝对做不到的。Yeah, absolutely undoable, untenable. 并且会将目前国际上形成的贫富差异固定化。这在道德上也是站不住脚的。So this is kind of a bit provocative language, but he's arguing that, yeah, if we set a fixed goal like this, yeah, for developing countries to stay within that goal, they would have to never actually develop, right? They would never be able to have the quality of life of developed countries. Yeah. And yeah, so ethically or morally, 站不住脚。 It's a 成语 means like cannot stand. I don't know. 第四，最近个别发达国家在设置他们的减排目标时，强调要同其他国，那强调要同其他国家的相应减排结合起来，即他们有意将别国的减排作为其减排目标的前提条件。嗯，对，他们有意 they deliberately 将别国的减排作为其 so they thinking of other countries' carbon restrictions or reduction 作为其减排目标的前提条件。What does this mean? Like taking one country's restrictions and applying it to oneself? Like at the very least, it should be comparable, right, between countries. But at the same time, yeah, it's very complicated, very political. 在我们构建控制大气二氧化碳浓度国际责任体系的逻辑框架下，这样的做法也面临正当 no 正当性评价的问题。如果这里的其他国家也是发达国家，应该说设置这样的前提有一定的道理。这是因为绝大多数发达国家均在历史上形成了巨大的排放赤字，在今后减排上，需要相互促进与相互监督。如果把发展中国家发展中大国so this is presumably just China and India. Are there other ones? Russia? Russia is developed, right? I'm not sure. Maybe Russia counts as a developing country. I'm not up to date. Sorry, where were we? Yeah. 如果把发展中大国减排作为他们减排的前提，则将失去正当性。我们从图2、图3可以看出，到2005年止，中国人均累计排放只有 OECD 国家的1/10左右，而印度则只有20分之一左右。发展中国家同发达国家的历史排放，目前人均排放根本没有可比性。So he's arguing that developed countries should not use metrics suitable for developing countries and say, oh, I'll just copy China's, because these countries are developing and need to emit carbon to develop, but whereas the already developed countries should be cracking down on it quite seriously. 在这样的现实下，如个别发达国家执意要求发展中国家与其同步减排，则将失去其道德制高点，并势必会引来为善之批评。Okay, what do you reckon this means? 为善 Wei is fake. Shan is benevolence, so it's like phony benevolence. The Jiping, this Ji is using ridicule, right? So you'll never be ridiculed as phony. Like, all right. OK，最后本文给出4点主要结论。How much more have we got to go? Oh, not that much. 第一，IPCC 方案等目前在国际上很有影响的控制二氧化碳浓度的方案，很有影响力。I didn't know you could do it this way as well. 均给发达国家分配了远远高于发展中国家的未来排放权，并且没有考虑不同国家历史排放的巨大差异，因而都没有资格成为今后国际谈判的参考。All right, that's pretty harsh. Yeah, I'm kind of curious as to what actually happened after this. 第二，当前发达国家倡导的从确定全球及各国减排比例出发，构建全球控制大气二氧化碳浓度的责任体系的做法，实质上掩盖了发达国家与发展中国家在历史排放和当前人均排放上的巨大差异。Didn't you just say that over here? I don't know. Just 并最终将剥夺发展中国家应得的发展权。I feel like we're just saying the same things over and over again. 第三，以人均累计排放为指标，从分配排放权出发，构建全球控制大气二氧化碳浓度的责任体系，对符合公平正义原则。Yeah, so this is the per capita thing. 第四，即使在450至470 ppmv 浓度控制目标下，中国也有足够的逻辑和道义的支持，要求在2006到2050年间，获得 OK 110至130 GTC 的排放权。All right, that'll do for this video. Yeah, this sort of technical thing, I'm not entirely sure. It seems like it needs more details. I feel like the paper kind of just repeated the same thing. So the main points were like how to measure this, whether you measure developed countries the same as developing countries, whether or not historical precedent counts towards carbon emissions, and whether or not you should use per capita or by country. And yeah, everyone is out to maximize their profit and so on. It reminds me of like housemates, or when you have a housemate, one who is the tidiest tends to do the cleaning, right? Because the one who doesn't think the house is untidy just goes, no, it's fine. What's the problem? Yeah, and that person ends up not doing any of the cleaning. Anyway, thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe. I'll see you in the future. TTFN!